Oh gosh! In the shadows of Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, a heart-wrenching cry pierces through the darkness, a desperate plea that would send chills down anyone's spine. And you won't believe who it's coming from. The guards, turning a blind eye, reveal the shocking truth about what really happens behind those forbidding walls.
The cuffs are usually cuffed at the arm with a waist chain on. So being that he's going to be traveling by himself, he's going to be cuffed, and they're going to have a waist chain on him so he can't move his arms too far. So the chain is going to be around his waist. Sometimes it's a belt, sometimes it's a chain, and he's going to have leg irons. So he's not going to be able to run or anything like that. And then they're going to take him to the court, and then they're going to turn him over to the courts there, and then they're going to take everything off and they're going to search him again. Most of the time they will search you again, and then they put you in the cell and wait for the judge to call you up to the courtroom when they're ready for him.
Picture this. A man who once commanded every room he walked into, whose very presence spelled luxury and power, now finds himself at his most vulnerable. We're talking about none other than Sean Diddy Combs, darling. Can you imagine? In a place where danger lurks around every corner, what could possibly drive this music industry titan to risk everything just for a moment's peace? Trust me, as his past comes back to haunt him and his enemies circle like vultures, you'll want to hear what's really going down under that prison roof.
Yeah, well, if you're talking about fraud, so many of the victims in these crimes don't think they are victims. They don't even consider themselves victims. There are other parts of the definition of sex trafficking where it talks about the abuse of a position of vulnerability, where a vulnerability is taken advantage of because of factors like social circumstances, economic circumstances, being pregnant, being undocumented. Some of it could be in a nightclub, it could be in a brothel. We have done work elsewhere in the world. Some areas brothels are legal, and some places they are not. So it could be a brothel, a strip club, definitely at house parties often, where there's a very, very kind of a controlled way of knowing who enters and who doesn't.
I mean, this is the crossover event of the century at the MDC. You have Diddy and Luigi Mangione locked up together. Our sources say that they haven't quite met yet, though they do share a legal team, but that Diddy is absolutely furious that he's been throwing tantrums. And if anything, this just goes to show his inflated ego and how he feels, he has the name Love, that he should be loved and adored. Meanwhile, Luigi allegedly shot someone in cold blood on camera. So to Diddy, he doesn't get it. He's saying, I am innocent, yet you have this guy allegedly on camera killing somebody. How is he being revered as a hero and Diddy's a villain?
Now, hold on to your seats because this is where it gets juicy. Just days ago, in a cloak and dagger operation that would make Hollywood jealous, Diddy was whisked away from the detention center to a Brooklyn hospital. But here's the tea. They deliberately waited until after dark. Why so secretive, darling? Sources tell us they were desperately trying to keep it hush-hush from other inmates and even some of the staff. And get this, it wasn't even an overnight stay. The official story? An MRI for some knee pain that's allegedly been bothering our 55-year-old mogul who's already gone under the knife multiple times. But honey, let me tell you, there might be something far more sinister brewing within those prison walls than just a bad knee.
Indictment was filed on January 30th. Coincidentally, according to the New York Post, that's the same day P. Diddy was taken to a Brooklyn hospital from MDC. MDC is the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. It's where Diddy's been held since his arrest back in September. His team has tried multiple times for bail, but it's always been denied. So that's where Diddy has been for months now, but last week he was taken to the hospital. According to reports from the New York Post, Diddy was transported from MDC in the cover of darkness at about 10 p.m. on January 30th. He was taken to a Brooklyn hospital for an MRI after reporting issues with his knee. This actually isn't the first time we've heard about Diddy's knee either. He's apparently had problems with it since 2003 when he ran the New York Marathon.
So why is Diddy getting raced out in the cover of darkness, we keep hearing? Why does he get the cover of darkness? Why does he get taken out because he needs an aspirin? Help me, Dr. Hendricks.
Well, I'll tell you, each inmate gets a a physical within 14 days of their arrival at any facility. And I'm sure, based on reports of him having several knee surgeries throughout the years after being a marathoner back in 2003. So this may have been in the works in terms of getting him out for an MRI, because I know that they don't have that equipment at the institution. And I'll just tell you this, they probably had set this appointment up months, maybe weeks ago, and they set it up for the evening.
To leave at 1 a.m. in the cover of darkness.
Now, let me paint you a picture of this nightmare called the Metropolitan Detention Center. It's absolutely horrifying, darling. We're talking about a concrete jungle housing over 1,200 inmates, where violence isn't just common, it's practically a daily special. The scenes we're hearing about would make your blood run cold: fatal stabbings, brutal assaults, leaving both inmates and staff trembling in fear. And just when you think it couldn't get more scandalous, wait until you hear what they found during their latest sweep. Drugs, darling, homemade weapons, and thousands, yes, thousands of electronic devices. It's like an underground criminal shopping mall in there. While the federal authorities put on their brave face, claiming violence won't be tolerated, the reality is far more chilling. Poor Diddy finds himself completely isolated when danger comes knocking. The conditions absolutely dreadful. Even the judges, yes, the judges, are horrified. Some have actually stopped sending non-violent offenders there. And here's something that'll make your jaw drop. In April, some MS-13 gang members, according to prosecutors of course, turned the place into a scene from a horror movie, stabbing an inmate 44 times. Can you believe it? The attack was caught on camera and they recovered 2 makeshift weapons. Thank heavens the victim survived. But wait, there's more. In just 3 years, 4 inmates have taken their own lives. And darling, the problems don't stop at violence. We're talking medical neglect, staff shortages, and drug smuggling scandals. Some staff members, at least 6 and 5 years, have been charged with crimes, accepting bribes, smuggling contraband. It's like a prison soap opera, but deadly real.
You know, no jail or prison is expected to be a 5-star hotel, we know that, but it's not supposed to be a house of horrors either.
Yeah, the troubled and violent Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn housing Sean Diddy Combs raided by the feds today. They're investigating poor conditions, rampant drug smuggling, mounting violence, and repeated inmate deaths.
Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles live at the scene in Sunset Park with what's really going on. Darla.
Well, Bill, the Bureau of Prisons will only say this is an interagency operation to maintain a safe environment, but sources tell ABC News that inmates are not the target, and attorneys who've been seeing clients here for years say the timing is very curious.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, sweetie. Word on the cell block is that this mysterious MRI wasn't just about some achy knee. The whispers suggest something far more disturbing. Apparently, Diddy got caught up in another violent confrontation, an inmate assault that left him reeling and desperate. While the prison bigwigs are trying to downplay it all, our sources, and trust me, they're close to the case, insist this isn't the first time our music mogul has found himself in the crosshairs of unchecked brutality. And honey, they're saying this kind of incident is practically tradition at the infamous MDC.
It unfolded in about 15 seconds. MDC surveillance video shows Isaiah Garcia approach Christopher Byers on the top level of their jail pod with a hand inside his uniform. Garcia uses that same hand to stab Byers more than 20 times with a broken off top of a mop or broom handle he reportedly sharpened to use as a shank. Another camera angle shows one officer respond within seconds. According to the criminal complaint, she hits Garcia with pepper spray. She reportedly follows him to his cell to handcuff him as he was trying to flush the shank. Meanwhile, a handful of officers escort Byers out of the pod as he is clearly bleeding from the neck onto the stairs and the floor. Other camera angles show many more officers tend to Byers in the hallway before he's sent to the hospital.
Officer Downing was the supervisor inside an MDC pod in November when 2 inmates asked the guard to open a cell door to give another inmate some soup. After letting them in, Downing left his post to go check out what he thought was a fight inside that cell.
When he arrived at the cell, another inmate attacked him.
MDC says Jose Estrada threw that first punch, then tried to yank the officer's radio from his hip to keep him from calling for help.
Several inmates came from behind him to also attack him.
The corrections officer then had to run the gauntlet to get through that group of inmates, all of whom were throwing punches.
they wanted to assault an officer that day.
Officer Downing managed to escape with just some minor injuries, including some bruising to his face.
Let's talk about the legal drama because it's absolutely mind-blowing. Diddy's facing charges that read like a criminal blockbuster script. Sex trafficking, racketeering, transportation for prostitution, the list goes on. With his federal trial set for May 5th, every single move he makes is under the microscope. It's not just about being a celebrity anymore, it's about fighting for his very freedom. And despite all his fame and fortune, would you believe they've denied him bail 3 times? 3 times, darling. Each rejection paints an increasingly grim picture of his future. Just goes to show that even when you're sitting on top of the world, the justice system can bring you crashing down to earth.
The complaint claims on the surface, each of these businesses served a legitimate purpose related to entertainment, music, and other subjects. But in reality, Combs, by and through himself and his agents, employees, and contractors, used these businesses to sexually assault, abuse, threaten, and coerce hundreds of individuals through sexual quid pro quo schemes, as well as to take advantage of individuals with impunity, thinking the victims would never seek recourse. Combs and his agents, employees, and contractors through these Combs businesses would tell victims, this is what it takes to be famous. What are you willing to do to become a star? And perform this sexual act, or else to coerce the victim into performing a non-consensual sexual act for the gratification of Combs and his cohorts. By the way, this is also key for the criminal charges that he faces, specifically the racketeering charge that he used his businesses and resources allegedly to lead and further a criminal enterprise that was engaged in sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, other alleged illegal activity.
The latest bombshell? A coordinated sweep at the detention center that set everyone's tongues wagging. Federal agents uncovered a treasure trove of contraband, drugs, weapons, and enough electronic devices to open a small tech store. And here's the scary part. These aren't just toys, honey. These are tools that could be used for more violence or even tampering with evidence. With all the fatal stabbings and brutal assaults happening inside, it's becoming crystal clear that even being a high-profile inmate doesn't guarantee your safety. In this concrete jungle, every cry for help tells its own tragic story.
Investigators descended on the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn this morning for a safety operation. Chopper 2 captured various agencies on the ground, including the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Justice, and the Office of the Inspector General. Sean Diddy Combs is currently being held there on sex trafficking charges. A law enforcement spokesman tells us the operation was planned but offered no other specifics. The Metropolitan Detention Center has faced scrutiny over poor conditions, including violence and staffing shortages.
In connection with the Bureau of Prisons' October 28, 2024 to November 1, 2024 sweep of the Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC, a BOP investigator, Investigator 1, photographed 19 pages of Combs' notes and sent them to the government's filter team. The filter team consists of AUSAs, these are Assistant United States Attorneys, who aren't involved in the investigation or prosecution of this case. The filter team redacted the notes and sent them to the case team. The case team consists of the agents and AUSAs investigating and prosecuting Combs. So let me start there. So yes, there was a raid at the MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center, where currently Sean Combs is being locked up. Now, the government has always indicated that this raid was pre-planned, and it wasn't specifically about Sean Combs, whose unit was searched.
But wait, there's more to this saga. Diddy's current troubles are just the tip of the iceberg, darling. Let's take a walk down memory lane, shall we? Back in 1991, what should have been a wonderful charity basketball game turned into an absolute nightmare. 9 teenagers, lost their lives in a devastating stampede. It's a tragedy that's haunted him ever since, casting a long shadow over his legacy.
On December 28, 1991, 9 young people died in a crowd stampede at a city college in New York City. A charity basketball game headlined by hip-hop stars Heavy D and Puff Daddy was to blame. Now, shortly after 6 p.m., according to eyewitness accounts, the crowd outside of the City University of New York broke one of the glass doors that was separating them from the lobby of the building. Now, despite the presence of at least 66 New York City cops, 38 City College campus security guards, and 20 private security guards hired by the event's promoters, the crowd was still able to surge through the doors and rush into the building shortly after 7 p.m. when the event finally got underway. Now, once inside of the lobby, the crowd rushed down a set of stairs leading to the gymnasium. At the bottom of those stairs were 4 swinging doors, 3 of them closed, that opened not into the gymnasium, but into a tight stairwell. Now, while the 3,000 strong crowd surged forward, those people who had reached the stairwell first were caught in a crush that would leave 8 dead on the scene and 29 others injured, one of whom would later die of her injury.
Fast forward to 1999, and honey, the drama just keeps coming. A nightclub shooting, with none other than Jennifer Lopez caught in the middle of it all, sent shockwaves through his public image. But that's not even the juiciest part. A former bad boy artist, Moses Shine Barrow, dropped a bombshell accusation that'll make your head spin. He claims Diddy orchestrated a setup that cost him a decade behind bars after another club shooting. Talk about betrayal.
I was absolutely set up to be the fall guy.
The self-proclaimed fall guy now speaking out in his own words. Almost 25 years since that infamous nightclub shooting during a night out with Sean Diddy Combs and his then-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez. 3 people were injured that night.
There's a narrative that still exists that you knowingly took the fall for Sean Combs.
Taking the fall means not snitching, not getting your friends in trouble. Even today, I wouldn't want to do anything to get anyone in trouble.
Sure. So did anyone come to you and say, hey man, we need you to take this hit for Diddy?
No, I did that out of honor and integrity.
Sean Combs' representatives telling ABC News this evening in part, Mr. Combs categorically denies Mr. Barrow's allegations, including any suggestion that he orchestrated Mr. Barrow to take the fall or sacrificed him.
When you really think about it, darling, Diddy's cry for help is so much more than just a desperate plea. It's the sound of a life completely turned upside down by choices and a system that's abandoned even its most famous inmates. In this concrete nightmare where violence rules and guards look the other way, even someone as powerful as Diddy has to fight for survival all alone. As his trial approaches and skeletons keep tumbling out of his closet, every whispered secret and act of betrayal makes his situation even more dire. Will anyone hear his desperate cry through these cold walls, or will his voice be lost forever in the echoes of his past? One thing's for certain, whatever happens behind these walls will send shockwaves far beyond them.
I had clients describe MDC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
Lance A. Clark is a federal defense attorney who's been there many times.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
Occupy the streets until they get heat.
In the winter of 2019, protests over a power outage left inmates without light or heat for a week in the cold.
I understand how cold it must be in those cells, and not to have any electricity, any lights, and to not be able to communicate with your family is just inhumane.
The prison has about 1,200 detainees and is the only federal prison in the nation's largest city. The DOJ shut down New York City's other federal jail, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, back in 2021, 2 years after Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide there.
So here's what everyone's dying to know. Is this desperate cry for help the final proof that even the mighty can fall? Was that secretive midnight hospital visit, supposedly just for a knee MRI, actually hiding something far more sinister brewing inside one of Brooklyn's most dangerous detention centers? Or is this just another shocking chapter in the ongoing saga of a music mogul whose past sins and present enemies are colliding in ways that nobody could have predicted?
Jane Doe says she told Diddy she was married and she wouldn't fool around, so the two left. But she began to realize something was wrong. According to the complaint, she started to get drowsy, said it was hard for her to remain upright, and she suspected she was drugged. She claims during the drive she noticed several pieces of mail on the floor of the car and texted the address on the mail to her husband. Now, when they arrived, Diddy helped Jane Doe into his home and at first seemed friendly and well-mannered. However, that changed when they were alone. Jane Doe claims Diddy tried to give her more alcohol, but she declined, saying she just wanted to sleep. According to the complaint, while feeling more fatigued, Jane Doe allowed Diddy to help her to bed. She says she tried to keep her clothes on to protect herself, but Diddy insisted that she at least remove her shoes. Once Jane Doe was in the bed, she claims Diddy became aggressive. He tried to take her clothes off and pressured her to engage in sexual activity. She says she refused repeatedly and reminded him she's married. At this point, we all know who Diddy is, right? You know, he has a huge empire until that came crashing down, and now he's in jail charged with sex trafficking, among other things. By the way, which he pleaded not guilty to. But he's been slapped with a number of lawsuits accusing him of sexual misconduct, including rape and assault, which he also denies those allegations too. So here we are, around 40 lawsuits deep, a trial that's right around the corner. But one thing maybe Diddy didn't expect was the largest department store in the US calling him an equal opportunity predator. Yup, those exact words.
Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications, darling. Because let me tell you, this story is just getting started, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single jaw-dropping moment of what's coming next. The truth? Oh honey, it's more shocking than anyone could have imagined.